I'm back home in the American South, but my roots were firmly planted, well, maybe not so firmly planted in Russia. But all of the branches and twigs from those Russian roots are here in the American South. Let me explain. You may not have heard of the pogroms. The pogroms were systematic gangs beating and intimidating and murdering Jewish people. The first pogrom was reportedly in the year 1100. But we're all familiar with the big ones, the Spanish Inquisition, the Nazis, and the pogroms. The pogroms attacked the Jewish people so there was blood spilling out like it was a faucet. So hundreds of thousands of Jews tried to escape this system. Among those that tried to escape were my bubbies and zadies, my grandmothers and grandfathers. There was Bubby Bertha and Zadie Benjamin, grandfather Benjamin, and there was, excuse me, Bubby Celia and Zadie Abraham. The Zellens, Bertha and Benjamin, and their two children, Ida and Harry, came over on one of those immigrant ships. I never heard what started all this so that they would leave, but I could only imagine. My Aunt Ida told me, however, what happened on that immigrant ship. As they were approaching New York Harbor, in the back of their minds was all the death and devastation and illness and bodies thrown overboard. And then they saw that beacon of hope, Lady Liberty, and the whole boat, the whole ship started throwing confetti and being joyous. Well, according to my Aunt Ida, little Harry, who was 5 years old at the time, was a bit of a Mossack. A Mossack is a little child that just happens to find trouble easily and sometimes gets away with it. Well, Harry saw all this excitement and he needed to get in, so he found two suitcases, the only things the Zellens brought with him from Russia. He opened up one, found the clothes, and threw it in the air. The Zellens left Russia with very little, and they arrived in the US with even less. My grandparents, with the help of the family, moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and that's where the Zellens, for most of the Zellens, that's where they stayed. My grandfather, with help of a family, opened up a small grocery store on Peachtree Street in a predominantly African-American part of Atlanta. My grandfather saw so much suffering and starvation and beatings and torture in Russia, he was not about to let that happen to his new American neighbors. He granted credit and wasn't always paid back, but that didn't bother him because he knew the Bible, Leviticus, love thy neighbor as thyself. My mother, Ella, and my Aunt Lil were the first Zellens born in America. But there was something else that was really strange. My mother passed in 2001. I'm going through all of her papers. I can't believe what I'm reading. The 1920 census from Atlanta, Georgia. Benjamin Zellen, head of household. Nation of origin, excuse me, Russia. Race, Negro. I couldn't believe it. So I actually did research and found that it wasn't uncommon in the Deep South after the Civil War to label Jewish people, Italian people, Catholic people as Negro. But I thought to myself, oh, my grandfather, who I never met because he died 25 years before I was born. I thought, oh, is he ever cool? He taught me about personhood, love people. And I still carry that with me today. And then there are the Finks, who lived in a small shtetl, which is a village, on the borders of Poland and Ukraine. In their village, the pogroms were raging. Gangs were just doing so much harm and waste, but it was even worse for the Finks. They set a fire to the little tiny cottage that housed the Finks. And my Bubby, Celia, my Zadie, Abraham were able to get the two oldest child's children out, excuse me, Isidore and Emma, but they were not able to get out a pair of excuse me, a set of newborn twins
Mm.
who perished in that fire. The Finks also headed to America. They also had relatives, and their relatives said, West Virginia is a place you ought to be. So they loaded up their suitcases and they moved, well, not to Beverly, but they moved to the Appalachian Hills. And for the first time, Abraham found people that were respectful, that were kind, that were accepting. They saw this stooped over man carrying, schlepping all of his goods on his back. And they realized, even though he spoke funny, that he, like them, is an outsider in the American mainstream. So they treated him kindly and with dignity. But after a while, it was about money this time. The first time, it was to life, l'chaim. That's why they moved from Russia. But now, from West Virginia, it was to Nashville, Tennessee. And this time, it was for money. So family helped them Abraham find a job in Nashville. And that's where my father, Joseph NMI Fink, no middle initial, that's where my father was born in 1914. And that's where he spent his formidable years until the Fink family made their last trip as a family, their last move to Louisville, Kentucky. Now, my dad had another experience, and so I was told when he was in Louisville. By the way, you can't see me now, but I'm not a big guy. I mean, I'm 5'5", I weigh 134. My dad wasn't much bigger, but he tried out for the football team. And there was the star athlete of the team. By the way, my dad, I saw him bowl once. The ball never left his fingers. He went down the alley. I think it was a 4-10 split. But this time was even worse. Back in the day, this team had this star, and eventually he became a star in Hollywood. He became the swashbuckling guy with a name that sounded so Hollywood, but it was his real name, Victor Mature. And good old Victor beat the crap out of my father for not being a good enough athlete to make the team. My father also endured a terrible experience. He was helping his mother, Celia, to her car on a rainy night in Louisville, and she fell, broke her hip, and died a couple of weeks later. My father was never able to let that pain go away. But Grandpa Zadie Abraham came to live with us, and he shared a room with me. We had a small apartment. And I got to learn more about this incredibly sad man who never smiled. But we became roommates, pals, buddies. When I wanted to skip school, he had my back. The kind, basically saying the child, he's sick, let him stay home. And I did. Well, then they moved Zadie to the Orthodox Jewish home for the aged. My dad and I would visit frequently. For me, it was like being with Willy Wonka. Grandpa had candy everywhere. It was great. And one time, my dad wanted to show his dad how tough little Chucky was. So he made a fist and he slammed me into my bicep. What was so great about that, though, was seeing my father put down by his own father with Abraham and his jumped away saying, Yosel, Yosel, the kinder, Joseph, Joseph, the child, the child. Oh, a few weeks later, we got the call and Zadie Abraham passed away. At the funeral, I was only 11 years old. I looked in that casket, I saw my friend, I saw my grandfather, and I cried a bucket of tears. Well, that then begs the question of what are the Finks up to now? Well, the Fink family reunion in Louisville, Kentucky is like none other. It's like the Clampets. I mean, we have matzo ball soup and grits. My cousin Arnold, now 89, and his brother Kenny, now 86, love country music, not bluegrass, real country music. They love NASCAR, and they were both presidents of their synagogues. If you ever go to the Kentucky Motor Speedway and you see a couple of guys humming Kenny Chesney songs while also wearing yarmulkes, those are my cousins. And what about me? Whatever happened to me? Excuse me while I grab a little bit of water here. Oops. I uh I went to temple with my parents at the Weiss Temple in Cincinnati. My parents had both met in Cincinnati after moving there. And I never felt all that great. I would look out the stained glass window and say, man, I could be outside playing. Why am I in here? But I was bar mitzvahed at 13 and confirmed at 16. And then I became a wandering gastronomical Jew. What does that mean? Well, I never really found a religious home, although I tried. And Gino is Jewish in name only. And gastronomical, oh, I love Jewish food. I love matzo ball soup. I love lox. I even like tongue. Now, before you go all ooey, who here eats ham? Well, and to show you how cool that was, my buddy Randy and I would travel 5 hours to Charlotte from Asheville and back and have lunch just for a tongue sandwich. And then before you go, keep in mind, Moses would be so jealous. He schlepped through the desert for 40 years eating camp food while we enjoy this wonderful delicacy. But two things happened recently that have changed me from being a Gino to being a proud, proud Jewish man. The first happened in this very chapel. Side note, this is taking place at the Land of Sky United Church of Christ. This is just outside the story. And the show is going to be there. So when I say it's in this chapel, that's what I mean. So in this chapel, in this wonderful, wonderful place, I found another way to become Jewish, thanks to Pastor Sarah and her embracing of all cultures. This congregation is the most diverse I've ever seen. We have Black people, we have Asian people, we have Latin people, we have gay people, we have lesbian, we have trans, you name it, we got it. And we have Jewish people. In fact, last month, I got to read the 4 questions, actually not read, recite the 4 questions for the Passover Seder. The 4 questions, the first one is, wherefore on this night do we celebrate? And the answer is very simple. Passover is about the escape of the Jewish people from Egypt when Moses led the people to the promised land. And that's why we celebrate Passover. But something else occurred. I love this church. And if you want to get an idea of what we mean by social justice, if you just look out the window behind this church, you'll see Beloved Village. That's a housing neighborhood for the unhoused people that are being built now, thanks to the generosity of this church who donated all the land. But something else happened in December that just really brought me back to my Jewish roots. My granddaughter, 7-year-old Louise, is in a Montessori school at first grade in Cincinnati. And she's so cute. She got curly blonde hair and these blue eyes. And she could make the grouchiest grouch into a nice person. The teacher gave them an assignment in December, and they were to research and then draw pictures of one of the 3 holidays of December: Christmas, Kwanzaa, or Hanukkah. Louise chose Hanukkah because she lights the menorah every year with her daddy, my son Drew, as she says, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kadoshana b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'halak ner shel Hanukkah. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, for granting us the festival of lights. Well, one of the prompts, the teacher gave all the kids prompts. One of the prompts that Louise had to research was name the continents in which Jewish people live. She found out, indeed, there are Jewish people in Antarctica. And she loves drawing and she loves art, whether it's finger painting or Picasso. She loves it. So she dug in and she answered all the questions and she made her presentation, and the teacher was wowed. She gave her 100%, and she could not believe all the effort that Louise put into this. The next day, Drew had a video call with Mima and Poppy, Cindy and me, and Louise was going to give us her presentation. But before that, she was playing, she was kidding, she was having a grand old time with Daddy. But then, when it was time for her presentation, she became as serious as an Orthodox rabbi on Rosh Hashanah, the new year. And she gave her presentation, and we were wowed. But before she ended, she got real close and said, Mima, Poppy, I love you. And we ended the call, and Cindy and I looked at each other and cried the most joyous tears you could ever imagine. So now, thanks to the Land of Sky, United Church of Christ, and my sweet little granddaughter Louise, I am a proud Jewish man. I'm also a proud grandfather, but I now am so proud of my Jewish roots, that my grandparents, what they had to go through so that I could tell you this story in the American South. Wait, I just got a hankering for lox and tongue. Oh, but before I go, shalom, l'chaim. Thank you.